you guys doing today? It's Anthony Gangi. Welcome to another episode of On the Line. Today we're going to have a very good topic. We're going to be talking about controlling our interaction with the inmate population. And today I have the ever so famous author of When Home Becomes a Housing Unit, William Young. William, how are you today, brother?
I'm doing well. How are you? I don't know about ever so famous, Anthony. I don't know what that's about.
Well, you're famous in my life.
Well, thank you, sir.
Thanks. I need some love, man. Tough times here. Hey, I thought this was a great topic. So first off, thank you for, I know you're busy today. Thank you. It's kind of, I do these shows every Monday real quick, and I thought you'd be perfect fit for this topic because not only it's about controlling the population, but it's also about controlling ourselves. So I thought I may ask you first, when it comes to dealing with that inmate population, how important is it to have yourself in check?
Well, it's very important. You have to be able to control all of your temperament, your anger, any biases that you may have, any preconceptions about anyone, any charges, really anything. I mean, you have to go in there with an open mind and treat each individual. For me, at least, when I go in, I treat each individual as they are treating me at that moment, regardless of what has happened prior to our interactions.
Right. Now, Russ made it clear when we did an episode on being firm, fair, and consistent. Russ made it clear that's how you have to see yourself first before you can go ahead and project that to the population. I'll share a little story real quick where I kind of had to have check in myself. And then also you also have to have control of the environment as well. Because I remember when I first got the job, I had a female inmate that was testing me over simple jobs I asked her to do. She would just constantly test me. And every time I would tell her something to do, she would still do it. But she'd have a little back talk on her. And for some reason, I was new to the field, and I was just reacting to that back talk. And the senior officer I had, he was watching me and kind of seeing the interaction. And even though she was getting it done, she just had these little remarks that got to me. And in the end, he's like, let me ask you a question. Do you think you're doing anything correct right now? I said, well, she's doing the work, right? I mean, she's getting the work done. She may have a little back talk, but she's getting the work done. He goes, yeah, but you're feeding into that. He goes, you got to learn to start letting some of that stuff go. She's got the back talk, but she's still doing what's expected of her. I said, I know, but couldn't let that go because I thought that she was taking a level of my authority with her. Like, yeah, she's doing it. Don't get me wrong. But that back talk to me was making me feel like she was questioning a little bit of my authority. He goes, yeah, but he goes, Gange, you got to understand something. The environment. Right now, you can't expect to control her because you have no control of the environment. He goes, well, are you even looking around her when she's, talking smack? She's around other inmates that are encouraging her behavior. Therefore, even if she didn't want to do it, the point is, she has what they expect of her, and then you have what you expect of her. Guess who's going to win that? The population. He goes, I guarantee you, if you pull her out separately and you talk to her, you'll have a totally different reaction from her. So a couple of days later, I get the unit again, and I'm like, all right, you know what? Let me wait for her to come into the office. I'm always willing to learn. Let me wait for her to come into the office, and then I'm going to address her without no one around. So she comes into the office because I'm, calling her and get ready to give her supplies. And I was like, are we really going to go back and forth? She goes, Ganji, I don't want to do this. She goes, and she's exhausted. I was like, what? She goes, I don't want, she goes, this is just all for show. You know what I mean? I'm still doing it. I don't want to get the write-up, but you're putting me out there on Front Street, and I have to react to that. And believe it or not, as time progressed, me and her actually had a very decent rapport. But I learned something really quick that day. Have control of the environment. I never looked around her. I looked at her. I never looked at what was controlling her behavior. You know what I mean? And at the end of the day here I am wasting all this energy when at the end, if I just had that private dialogue with her, respectfully said, what's going on? What's the issue? And for her to say that, it turned out to be just a whole different dynamic. But I mean, you got to admit, having control of yourself and then having that control of the environment is very important, correct?
Well, you're absolutely right, and I think that's a great story. I mean, the whole act of being in corrections, that we have a role to play, they have a role to play, and so she is essentially on stage at that moment performing for all of her individuals. And so one of the things that I've always done is if I'm having a negative interaction with an inmate, I pull them off stage. I get them away from their friends, I get them away from the audience, and then we have a one-on-one conversation. And you're right, it's a whole different tone, but it's the same for us, right? If we feel like we're getting punked out in front of a housing unit full of inmates, then if you don't have control over it, if you start taking it personal, then you start to overreact, and they know that. They know they get under your skin. So you just have to, Russ is right, you have to just be you have to get control of yourself and just understand that that's part of the game. That's what a lot of what they're doing is just for show because they have to live there.
Right. You make a good point too, because sometimes you get those mass movements. You may have an inmate that's talking smack, and that may not be the time to address them during that mass movement. Because again, you don't have any control at that point. You may want to say, okay, you know what? He's going to get that little remark off for now. You know, whatever it is, as long as it's not that threatens the safety and security. You know what I mean? But I'm going to get him in a more controlled environment. That's what winds up happening when the inmate comes out, or maybe after you lock everybody else in, you call the inmate out by themselves, talk to them in there and say, what's going on? Again, being professional, we're not talking about doing anything unprofessional. And it turns out you wind up having a totally different inmate. So you kind of get to have that understanding of how much that environment can really pressure someone to be someone that they really don't want to be. Because even when you go to address them, you can hear that sigh of relief. They don't want to have the back and forth most of the time. They're just doing it because, again, your approach, like you said, hey, Gangi, you approached me in front of 20 of my peers. How do you expect me to act? Now you approach me when it's more controlled. And the funny thing is, sometimes that little dialogue, that little one-on-one, maybe that little expectation that you give to that inmate, I'll tell you something, that could help you with your subsequent interactions with that inmate where, you know, after you have that heart-to-heart, maybe that inmate will decide not to be an ass clown, you know, when they're walking through that main mass movement. But again, control of yourself, control the environment, and that's usually the best way that you can control the population. And also, one more thing before we go. You also have to control the dialogue as well. Don't let an inmate take in the unknown. If you got to get something answered from that inmate, get it right into the point. Don't let them starting to take you down this whole journey where you have no idea where they're taking you. Just say, hey, I asked you a question. What's the answer? Or if they come up to you with a question, you know, what are you asking? So I said, just give me the question. What are you asking? Don't go on this journey where at the end you wind up not knowing where the hell you went. Take total control and make sure you keep that inmate to the point. Would you agree?
No, I agree. The conversations that you have a lot of times with them, with that population, is they're fishing for information. And just like we're learning their behaviors and their nicknames and kind of what upsets them and what doesn't, they're doing the same thing with us. And so if they do kind of take you off path a little bit, you need to listen to that little that little voice in the back of your head says, you know what, this is getting uncomfortable. And then you have to tell them, look, I'm not going to talk to you about this, or that's not what we're here to discuss. Just answer my question or whatever. And I've heard you talk about 1,000 times, being able to say no, not no because somebody else said, not no because whatever, but no because we're not discussing this because I'm not discussing it with you. Right. And you have to do that. You have to be able to, and that's why communication is so important. When they take you kind of down a different path, you have to be able to get them back on path, no matter what they throw at you. And so you have to have control over your emotions and it's a nice little intellectual chess game, really.
Yeah, you're 100%, man. Even when someone asks a question, they're in control of where that dialogue's going. That's why I've had inmates try to ask me something personal, and obviously you never give them nothing personal. But they're like, hey, Gangi, what type of car you drive? It's like, well, tell me what type of car you think I drive. I'd put it right back at them. Because also I want to know how much information they have on me. You know what I mean? So I could quickly say it's none of their damn business, and I will. But I'm also curious of, you may be asking me a question that you already know the answer to. Gangi, how many kids you have? Tell me how many kids you think I have. You know, I'm curious to see when they ask a question, what it is that they know about me. Why are they asking that? But then at the end of the day, trust and believe, once I find out what I need to find out, that inmate's going to know 100%. Everything you're asking me, none of your business. And it's funny how a lot of people rather joke around and lie and say, oh, I have 10 kids. I said, yeah, but first off, you're being seen as inconsistent. And second thing is why can't you just tell the inmate, no, it's none of their business? Well, Gangi, I didn't realize how hard it is. It's very hard to do, but you have to do it in this profession. Inmate asks you something personal, none of your business, right off the bat. But again, for me, I will go back with the question because I want to know what they know about me. But trust and believe, the end of that dialogue, I'm going to let that inmate know that they've crossed the line and that, obviously the conversation is done. Take total control. Hey, Will, you have anything you want to say in closing?
No, I think you're right. When an inmate comes and they start these interactions and they're fishing for information, when you shut them down, when you tell them no, when they understand that you're not the officer that's going to be easily manipulated or give up that information, then they will leave you alone. They're going to go to another officer that will be a little bit weaker, that maybe is less prepared than you. So if you establish yourself in the beginning and it gets a lot easier as you go on throughout your career to deflect those kind of things.
Yeah, set that level at high. You could always work down. All right, guys, if you haven't, don't forget to subscribe to Guardian RFID. Check this out. We do a video every week. Again, the show is On the Line. Please stay safe.